Well, g'day guys, and welcome back to the channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Lee. I'm from Skulldrag Industries. Now, a little while ago on our channel, we installed the new Garmin UHD 2. Been an absolutely awesome little jigger, but today we're upgrading. So today we're having a look at the new Garmin Livescope Plus. We're going to install this bad boy into the kayak on our Railblaza Hexpole. Stay with us guys, this is going to be an epic unboxing and installation again. This is the Panoptix Livescope, which comes with the Garmin system. This is the Plus edition, which means it's the second generation of the Panoptix by Garmin. So as you can see, doing forward, down and perspective in the sonar. It comes with all the mounting hardware in gear, the GLS 10 sonar black box, and the Livescope LSV 34 transducer, and a whole bunch of other extra stuff to be able to mount it to kayaks or to actually to a boat. But let's kick off and have a bit of a look at this bad boy. So opening up, there's the Livescope installation. You can see I've actually been through those a couple of times already. But just taking the lid off the box, you can see that the black box here, the GLS 10, is incredibly well packed in there, in amongst all of this. Taking this off, it's quite a heavy unit when you take it out. And you can see, got a lot of heat fins and heat sinks on there. To dispel the heat and the power, and that is basically the brains of the outfit that hooks up and goes to your Garmin sounder. So obviously we've got a power bracket here and networking. So the other thing is you can network it to multiple sounders, and of course this is our plug that runs through to the transducer. Speaking of which, let's have a bit of a look in here. So we've got a variety of cables. So this is our transducer cable running to the business end of our transducer bracket. So with this particular Garmin, it can be mounted in a number of positions, also in the down position as well as in a perspective mode. So we're going to have a bit of a play around with those and see how it all goes. But that is an awesome addition. So looking forward to getting involved and to get this thing moving. We picked up this unit from the Sunshine Coast Marine Doctor, and in it you'll have a variety of bags with all of the network connectors and power cable connectors as well. So they come in a variety of bags. There's some really clear instructions on how to actually install this stuff. Let's get right into it. Center bracket, I told everyone I'd give them a bit of a report on that. It has been absolutely excellent in locking in that unit on there. Easily removable and easy to transport. Now, a few key things that we had to do when we were fitting out the wiring for this. Obviously we had to run a secondary wire, so this is the wire here that runs up through this wiring unit and onto the back of the unit here, and of course that is to feed the information that comes from our sonar transducer and through the GLS 10 black box. Speaking of which, one of the other key factors that we needed to take into consideration is the increased amount of area that's going to be required to fit the GLS 10 in. So you can see this board that's been made up here to fit the shape of the hull actually has a little U-shaped bracket of aluminium here that's been screwed in. Now that is designed so that we can actually slot the GLS 10 in and then hit it with the two screws at the top as a temporary installation. Now I say temporary because I want to be able to take the GLS 10 unit out of here and the Garmin off of the kayak and mount it on the boat for future reference as well. So you can see here on the board what we've done is we've actually added two battery holder brackets fashioned out of bits of plastic we had, and all of our FPV power hub accessories are on the other side of this board, and they fit in just nicely in there. So what that does is that allows the power to be distributed to the hub. Alright, so let's take a look at how we're going to mount this bad boy to the actual kayak. So what we've got here is a couple of Railblaza products. So we've got the 19 to 25 mount and the 32 to 41 mount. So these guys are actually going to be mounted, one on the boat, the larger one on the boat, and the smaller one on the kayak, to actually be able to help us out with attaching our Railblaza hex mount, as you can see in the background there. So let's take a little bit of a look at this bad boy and the schematics on it. So again, Railblaza, awesome company we've had a lot to do with, and a lot of our stuff that's on the kayak is actually a Railblaza. So it's been pretty good quality. So you can see obviously the how the whole Hexpole works is you've got an adjustable handle, and this obviously mounts to the kayak here, comes down, and our transducer plugs on the back. But let's not muck around with that. Let's get this bad boy open. So when you start off, it comes in a pretty good little package there. Seems to be quite robust, and yeah, we're looking forward to getting this bad boy in and seeing a few of those pictures in the future. And opening up the box for the first time, you can see that there's a variety of bits and pieces inside the box. So what we've got here is a dry bag. A dry bag, Railblaza, hold everything, and that looks like it actually will. So inside that we have got our mount that's going to go onto the kayak, and a bunch of our other components and handles, etc., to mount. So that's pretty exciting stuff. All right, let's have a bit of a look. So we've got the obligatory assembly instruction guide, and obviously a nice catalogue here to be able to buy heaps and heaps more Railblaza products. Awesome. All right, but let's have a look at the actual mount. You can see this is actually secured in by a couple of cardboard rings there. So this is obviously the mount that runs our pole out to the side, and then you can see packaged in here is the actual rail mount. So it looks at my first impression to be rather sturdy design. So we've got an aluminium cross section that's clearly not going to bend, and a nice solid connection there for the handle. So I think that's going to have a lot of torsional rigidity. It's probably going to see us pretty well into the future for our operations in the kayak. And probably one thing that I should mention is there is a very handy hex-based template that's on the back of that installation guide to help you if you do need to mount it onto a flat spot to get your drill template happening correctly. Now we're looking at the assembly of where you're actually going to connect and drop your hex pole from. I've chosen to go the same side as where I have my sounder. That is just simply because I'm left-handed, so when I'm fishing I obviously like to fish with my left hand, use my right hand for steering on the tiller, but also that'll be handy to have all of my electronics on the one side so that I can adjust that, so it gives me extra fishing room out of the other side. The only drawback for that is if I've got two transducers in the water side by side, there shouldn't be too much in the way of feedback, but there will be drag from the kayak, so I'm probably going to want to have an exacerbated right hand turn. We're going to see how that goes, but the beauty about this system and the way Railblaza is set up, I can always swap it to the other side and even it up. Now what you might be able to tell is my Hobie is a slightly older version of the PA14, so it doesn't have the new Hex rail. It's still got the rounded rail, and you'll notice that it is significantly shorter. Most of these other rails are out to about here or past that, which gives you handy points to be able to clamp things onto, like rod holders. Unfortunately for me, it's not as far forward to be able to do that, so my mounting positions have had to utilize other Railblaza products to be able to get my rod holders out, and also the attachment of my sounder. So in this particular instance, we could retrofit the whole system with a new rail, but I actually quite like the fact that these are short, and when I'm getting in on the other side they don't get in the way, so it actually makes it easier getting in and out of the kayak. But let's go ahead and mount this bad boy on. Okay, so we're going to be attaching the hex bracket on the adjustable base. So there's two options, a fixed base or an adjustable one. We're going to be using the adjustable one, and it fixes with these couple of green screws down here, and the idea behind that is to make sure that we can remove that from the kayak if we're not using it, which is a handy little adjustment. If it becomes at all bothersome and we're going to actually mount the hex pole permanently to the kayak, then we will just simply remove this adjustable screw base underneath. One of the things that's important to note is when this goes on, we're actually going to be using a couple of different screws here. So you can see these screws here that will go through will not actually be using, I'm going to be using a lock nut under it. And that lock nut, you can see, actually is one that has a white insert in the middle of it. Pretty important, because otherwise they're not going to fit like so. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to find ourselves an Allen key, and we're going to be attaching these by dropping these into here and then being able to insert these into and mount the base. So back out to the kayak, all we're trying to do now is to have a look at the orientation, where those bolt holes will line up, so that when we do disassemble it and take it back, we can make sure that the bracket is sitting at right angles from its installation point. Now that we know that, we can actually use our normal installation bolts that we were getting through from the Railblaza pack, making sure our alignment is good, and we know that they go in those two holes. So we're taking that off, and we're going to be placing those two bolts directly through those two, and then that will form the basis of bolting through and on to our rail. Now, as we set about installing that bracket on, we make sure those rubber grommets are on there, because that's what's actually going to give you the purchase on your bar. And if you've got a round bar like this, it is incredibly important. So we're just going to sit that there. So it's important to realize that you need to put those bolts into that area there before you flip this upside down, making sure that you keep your fingers on it and holding those in place. And it can be a little tricky, again making sure that they're in there. Should be able to drop those bolts into place like so. Now in this particular instance, I'm going to be using an electric screwdriver just because it's a bit thicker, but I would recommend, if you're not terribly proficient with using that type of tools, that you start off with a hand screwdriver. So we're only really using that to tighten down on that bracket, and then I'll do the rest by hand to make sure we get the best fit. That's actually quite stable there now and hardly moving. By tightening that with a hand screwdriver, you can actually feel how much weight you're putting on that. You don't over torsion those and break something. Yeehaw! And there we have it, all mounted, ready to go. Let's chuck on our mount system and lock that bad boy in. And there we have it, we're ready to mount our Hexpole. Alright, to start with, having a look at our assembly and installation guide gives you some good schematics here about how to actually attach the Hexpole, and obviously it's been designed to be able to mate to flat surfaces as well as on to rounded poles. But looking at that, you'll see there's indicators for direction, which will probably be this jigger here, and a whole bunch of knobs and stuff that have come with it in the packet. So we're going to start to pull together our Hexpole and begin to make it take shape. Okay, so now it's time to assemble the Hexpole. You can see I've actually got our two bolts through there like that, and we're going to place that onto the Hexpole like so. We're going to be grabbing the extra cover that goes over it, and then with the actual supplied kit, there are two of these attachments that will screw in. That allows you to adjust the tension on this arm, thus allowing the whole thing to swivel and turn around as you're searching for fish using the Hexpole. So once that goes on like so, by adjusting that, you can actually adjust the amount of tension in the slider as it goes around, or lock it off into one particular position. Now, one of the next key things is this indicator bracket, which is also going to be used to hold the whole system up, or to be able to adjust the depth. So we're just putting the green slider through there, attaching this over there. Now obviously that direction needs to be in the direction that you're going to be facing the Livescope at. Now in our particular instance, we're going to be using the handle as the indicator and the direction because of the reversal on of the handle on the actual kayak, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But you can see that goes on there, and then simply we are screwing into that, along that with that handle there, in order to secure it. So that allows this to pivot and turn like so, and you can adjust the height up and down with this bracket here. A couple of final adjustments by chucking the tube caps in here and here, and we are pretty much ready to attach this to the kayak. Now I wouldn't recommend putting the tube caps on the bottom, because you are actually going to want your salt water or any water to actually run out of that and not to become trapped. Chuck the grip handle on like so, and we are ready to go and fit to the kayak. Okay guys, so now we're ready to actually fit the hex pole to the mount. Now you'll see up in here there is a little green mount, and that's controlled by this pin at the top. We'll slot that in the down position into that hole and push it through, and you can see that maneuvers the hex pole in and out of the slot. Now the cool thing is that when you want to stow the hex pole, whether it be by adjusting the handle down and then rotating it, you'll hear it click, and then it is positively secured in place in the up position. To release, just simply undo that, it rotates down, folds out, and you are good to go. Now one of the things I noticed when I did this, you can see the adjustment of this. If I push this in, it's going to impact the chair here, so we are going to want to move this bracket backwards, which is no problems. We'll just do that pretty quickly, but it is going to be advantageous to actually be able to have this that little bit closer in, because the further this is out, the more drag you've got further out on a moment arm, which is going to want to turn you while you're using it. Now you're probably not going to be traveling a lot with the Livescope down, but it is still certainly going to be one consideration. One of the things we needed to look at was how far that handle was going to be out, because obviously the closer it is to your armrest here, the easier it is to going to be able to control this for extended periods of time. You also do need to remember that you are going to actually be able to swing this bad boy too, so you are going to need to have a little bit of room. But I think we will move that bracket back a little bit, and that should help us out. Now you can see we've moved our brackets back, we've moved our sounder back just a little bit, and put our rod holders on again, and just slotting straight in like so, locking it in, and we are ready to go. Okay, so now it comes time to mount our GLS 10. So as I mentioned before, I've actually got this orientated in the up position, and that's just simply so even down, whilst it's good to not allow water into the system, it does put it down quite low. So my preference is to actually have the system inverted, slotted into its mounting bracket, and sitting up nice and high. So even if you do get a bit of water in, these water caps should actually stop that from having a problem, and it also allows you then to have it quite high and away from any moisture that might accumulate in the bottom of the kayak. Now simply by slotting it into its allotted areas there, we can then secure with the screws. A nice solid base fixture, and that thing goes in there quite nice and solid. Now what we've got to do is connect up our power, and we are good to go. Now one of the things you'll notice with the bracket is it's quite robust and fits on there with that rubber quite well. One of the things you do want to be careful is when you're tensioning these up that you do go acrossways. So you start at one end, tension, and then across, tension the next. Be aware it is a plastic bracket, so over tensioning this could lead to it fracturing. Now in order to slot the transducer on, it simply goes into the pre-aligned holes there, and you can see there's a number of marks on the top in order to align your transducer, and it comes with this big screw bolt that goes on like that and then tightens down. That then allows you in the position to actually be able to crack that nut, rotate your transducer for a bit more forward view, or if you want down view, you can go down like so. Alright, now guys, here is a different bracket setup that also comes with the actual kit. Now you can see this bracket is set up so it's orientated basically to the front. Now this is what we call perspective mode. Comes with the Garmin, so it's an extra bracket that sits in here, allows you to swivel this around from basically looking down on your fish and sounding them and live scoping them to actually looking at it more in a plan view. So this rotates around like here in this bracket, and this one adjusts around like so. That allows you then to actually look at a bit of a plan view of what's around you and your kayak. That's going to scope the bottom, going to be able to point out where your fish are along the line. It's not going to tell you much in the way of depth, but you're actually going to be able to see the fish ahead of you or around the kayak. Another really cool addition to the kit. So that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. Apart from running our cable and connecting our sounder, we are pretty much done with the installation of the hex bracket and the Garmin Livescope unit. So thanks very much for watching, guys, and we'll be back on our next video to actually talk about the setup of the Livescope, and then probably go ahead and do some on-water testing. Yeehaw, it's looking awesome. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time out on the water.